I am absolutely addicted to these disappearing style blocks. I'm having so much fun creating them. I'm on my way to teach in Hawaii pretty soon, so I wanted to do one I'm now calling the Island Sunset. Let's get started. Now for today's project, I did purchase two different 10 by 10 squares. These are the Wilmington 10 Karat Gems. There's a pink and purple family I've used and a yellow and orange family that I've used. But in all fairness, this quilt right here used half of each stack, so I could make two. A beautiful quilt on the back, a bigger quilt than this. I think you get the picture. So what I really wanted to try to do with this project, not only design another killer block, but try to take colors and push them through each other was my original intention. And I had a lot of fun designing this. So what I did is I just took my 10 by 10 packs, right? And then I went ahead and I just opened them up and separated them out into my color families. So look at this board that I've created here. If you look carefully, I have laid them out from my lightest all the way through, back over here, to my darkest of my pinks and purples, and I also did the same with my yellows and oranges. To get high contrast in this particular project, what I really want you to do though is to take like your darkest of your purple and your lightest of your yellow over here, and then you're just gonna take those as you're building your stacks. Just take a moment and set them up right sides together because we're gonna sew around all four sides. So I literally just started going all the way through my color piles, just like this, until I built up all of my squares that I needed so that I could just comfortably sit at my machine and begin sewing. So I think you get the idea. Let's wander over to that machine and begin sewing. I know the quilt looks a bit complicated behind you. That was one of my tricks, but it is super, super easy. We're gonna use the standard half square triangle trick where we're gonna take and just sew all four sides of our two squares. So make sure your squares are right sides together. Some of those lighter fabrics are a little tricky, so look at your print. You're going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to go ahead and thread my machine today because I think if I thread the machine, it will actually sew much nicer, and it won't take me but a second here. Told you. Now, we've got the machine threaded. That's a good starting place for all of us today. And now I'm going to make my 1/4 inch seam allowance. And when I'm making these blocks, I have found that it's really easy if I just kind of secure this opposite corner. It keeps things from rippling and puckering when I'm done later. So I'm going to zip around these edges here for us. There's one little trick here. When I come to the corner, I just stop, pivot, come right back in, like yay, lining those up. And I'll be right back when I'm done with all four sides. Okay, now we're almost to that last corner, and this is why I've been holding that opposite corner, so I don't get much of a pucker as I come in there. Works really nicely. Thread cut, and then all you're going to simply do is you're going to take that block, layer on down, and then, and I've already got one kind of prepped out, I've got them all over the place. You need a good amount of them, right? You're going to take your ruler and you're going to lay it right where your threads cross. Not so much worried about the corners, but where the threads cross over each other, and you're going to make one diagonal cut like this, and then without moving the fabric, I kind of peel the ruler up, drop it back down where those thread crosses are for the cut right across the bias there again. And when that is all done, it is going to yield us these wonderful half square triangles, right? So this is the magic happening right here. And that's all we needed to do for the first step. Now, in the description below, we have our free printable today, and it shows you how to build our blocks out. We're technically building an hourglass block. So an hourglass block is going to basically going to be opposite colors. So be careful that you don't form a pinwheel. The pinwheel is like that. So make sure when you're building them, you build them all the same. That is your hourglass, or broken dishes, depending on which way you turn it. Okay, enough comedy. Now, as we get ready for the seams, we're just gonna fold these over like this, but because we're gonna have so many of those blocks, what I learned to do was to flip the next set over as well and build an entire stack right next to my sewing machine where I had my dark triangle always in the same location and the light triangle always in the same location so that I could simply nest those seams together there. I could really give it a nice pinch right here on the edge, and then I can run that through the machine with a 1/4 inch seam allowance as well. And when it's all done, it actually looks just like this block here. Now, I want you to be careful, excuse me, and this is what I wanted to point out. Now, it looks like just like this block. It is not impossible to build a bunch of blocks and some of them be facing one direction and some of them be facing the other, which will throw off the layout when you get this far into the quilt. So just take the time to make one block to this point, then make all your blocks so that they all look the same so that you don't have any frustrating situations down the road. Don't mean to make it sound confusing, it really is not, okay? So you're gonna build yourself your hourglass that way. Now, the next thing I want you to do, because you may not be using pre-cuts, you might be doing this your own personal way, is I want you to measure your square. I come all the way across here, and fortunately, I came up with 12 3/4. Now, let me take you a second, and I'm gonna show you the finished block a little bit closer. In the finished block, I actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pieces. So I have to divide this block here technically into thirds. So 12 3/4 in thirds is great because it's 4 1/4. However, slow down. We're cutting off of the center seam. So that 4 1/4 has to be divided by 2. So we're using 2 1/8 on this block. So what I would end up doing is taking my 2 and my 1/8, the little black lines in there, and I lay those right on top of that center block, on that center seam there, and I'm gonna cut once, then I'm going to rotate here, cut with my left hand, or if you have a Lazy Susan, wonderful to use your Lazy Susan, and I will make 4 cuts at 2 1/8 on my size block off of the center, and I'm gonna show you here in just a second what happens. So as a reminder, I made this first cut here, right? And then I made a cut like this, and a cut like that, and a cut like that, so you get this awesome like 9 patch. Now for our block, it's really simple. I want you to take your center and just rotate it 90 degrees in any direction so you get a checkerboard there. Isn't that fun? Then we're gonna just switch out our corners. And I learned this the hard way while doing another fun disappearing block. When you're doing your math, don't cheat. I want you to have perfect squares, so I want all of them to match as squares so you can make any kind of alteration or orientation changes. I did it once and I had this one was a square, but everything else was an odd shape, so I didn't get the opportunity to mix and match. So make sure you're not cheating on your ruler when you're doing your division, and that way you get the perfect opportunity to do all of this. Now what looks really cool here, when you look at the raw block, these lines right here look like they're gonna line up. But if you'll join me at a finished block, let's move these out of the way. Look what happens. I just think this is so cool. On these finished blocks, because of the 1/4 inch seam allowance, it actually creates a gap in the colors. And that, I think, makes the block look like it's pulsing a little bit, especially if I do this over the top cam for you and it makes your eyes go like this. So I love the energy that that square creates. Then once you have several of them made, what you can do is you can play. There's some new alternative designs. Now, I'm gonna show you what I did on the quilt behind me and in a little bit more detail here in just a second. But I was shooting for these opposites, but the way the block is built, you could technically build it and have a new counter block forming in there as well, where you'll have heavy chunks of color. I wanted it to feel equal in its chunks of color, so I made sure I had opposite colors when I was working. So then another block would fall into here, not yellows. I would rotate it like that so that I have lots of different chunks of color working. And in that printable below, we've got you the half square triangles becoming the patch, cutting it up. But this is kind of a different kind of orientation than I normally do. Each letter there on the printable, each letter A, B, C, and D represents one of the blocks. Remember, each color family is only represented once in this quilt because you have enough to do 2 quilts or a really big version. So here was A, then B and C and D, but then I come around here to E and I come back. So the color orientation was the primary block here, through the quilt this direction, down 1 step, over, down a step, over, and all the way through so that the color is shifting because I wanted the quilt to remind you of a sunset over the water in Hawaii, wishing you all paradise be found in all of your quilts until we see you next time right here at Man Sewing.